Hi guys, Mark is sharing some tips about smoking brisket this summer. And Mark, you were telling me earlier that you wish these are things that someone would have told you about since day one.
It would have helped. It would have helped. But we're going to break things down very simply.
All right, well, let's dive right into it. So, true or false, briskets bought at the grocery store need to be trimmed further?
They need to be trimmed. It is true, they need to be trimmed further. I found a brisket at HEB. It says super trimmed right there on the label, but there were plenty of pieces of fat that needed to be trimmed off. Also, the fat cap needs to be trimmed down to about 1/4 of an inch, and then any tiny, thinner pieces of meat are likely going to cook too fast, get too dry, or even burn. So you're going to want to cut those off the edges and even off the flat part at the very, very end as well.
All right, something to look out for there.
Yep.
Also, true or false, brisket must have a dry rub or seasoning of some kind to be good and flavorful.
False. It does not need a dry rub. All you need is coarse salt and pepper. I use this. It's already pre-mixed and ready to go, and I just layer this all over, and don't forget the edges as well.
That's tricky. I would assume you would need more, but there you go.
That's all you need. This is actually will work for a couple different briskets.
Oh, very awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, Mark, moving ahead. So what's the best wood to use here, and is there a wood to avoid?
All right, so the wood that we mostly use, including the experts, is post oak. It is plentiful. It's very mild in flavor. The wood you might want to avoid, especially for brisket, is mesquite. It burns too hot too fast, and the flavor can actually overpower the meat itself.
All right, well, we don't want that.
Yeah.
Okay, Mark, and this is a big topic among smokers. Do you smoke a brisket fat side up or fat side down?
Controversial topic in the brisket
Yes.
world, but after talking to lots of experts, it is broken down simply to what kind of smoker you're using. If you're using a wood-burning smoker, you do fat side up. If you're using a Traeger style or pellet grill, you do fat side down.
All right, but people still may argue about that.
Of course they will.
And you mentioned that low and slow is the key. I hear you say this like in the newsroom.
Right.
Is there a perfect temperature to smoke a brisket?
Again, the consensus among the experts is 225 degrees for your entire smoke.
All right, and let's talk about more temperatures. Like, when does a brisket need to be wrapped?
It needs to be wrapped once it pushes through the stall, and that's usually at 165 degrees. And what you're going to want to do, a lot of people use foil, but most experts use pink butcher paper like this. It allows the brisket to breathe a little bit. Wrap it real tight, put it right back on the smoker.
Okay, very interesting. I wouldn't think about using that.
Yep.
And so a lot of people want to know, when is a brisket done cooking?
It is done cooking when it reaches 200 degrees internal. Matter of fact, some experts say they have an oddly specific number, 203 degrees. Pull it off the smoker.
Oh, wow. Okay, very specific. And finally, how long should a brisket rest?
All right, so this is a big thing. Special emphasis on now. They say it's almost more important than how you smoke the brisket itself is letting it rest. And they say once it comes off the smoker, you take it still in the butcher paper, wrap it in an old towel, wrap it up like a little beef baby, and then put it inside an old school, as I've got this old Coleman style or igloo cooler, and you put the whole thing in the cooler and you just let it sit. And what you're going to do is you're going to let it sit and rest inside the cooler, wrapped in the old towel, until it comes down to 165 degrees internal. And then you can pull it out and you can start slicing it. Make sure you double check it with one of those cool instant read thermometers. Very easy to find. You find these on Amazon, even I think at HEB, but these come in handy for your entire smoking process.
All right, so this seems like patience is key here.
Patience is the absolute virtue, but in the end, it's that a tasty, experiment. And the great thing is, even when you make mistakes, is you get to try over, and every time you get to eat.
Yeah, it's a tasty learning process.
It's a very tasty learning experience, but I wish somebody had told all these things to me as far as temperatures and the process. It's actually simpler than it looks.
All right, well, we can't wait to have you try it and for us to taste it.
Right,
There you go.
I need to bring one in.
All right, thanks, Mark.